Hi, I'm Janie Donaldson. Welcome to Quilt Central, where we celebrate quilting and everyday living. Today's show will encompass a variety of quilting styles, from traditional to contemporary, and even bridge the gap in between. Life is full of changes, and I have one to tell you about, so stay right here at Quilt Central.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Janome America. Janome, because you simply love to sew. American Quilters Society, dedicated to promoting today's quilter. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, and books. Olfa, the original rotary cutting system. A1 Quilting Machines, precision quilting machines. A1. American Professional Quilting Systems, APQS, offers a full line of hand-guided quilting machines. June Taylor Company. Krause Publications. Milliken & Company. The Warm Company. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Welcome to Quilt Central, celebrating quilting in everyday living.
Welcome to Quilt Central, where we celebrate quilting and everyday living. And today we're celebrating Donna Wilder. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Janie.
Donna is cutting back a little and retiring from Quilt Central television, and we have just had a wonderful couple of years together. She's added great credibility to the program, and she's guided me all along the way with her professional efforts. And we have been very successful. We have won some wonderful awards, and we have had a lot of fun.
You're absolutely right. And it's, mixed feelings that I leave the show. I've enjoyed so much working with you and bringing the whole long arm quilting into the program, and so many wonderful guests that we've had. And certainly the most important part has been the audience and the wonderful letters we've received and all of the support that you've given us over the years. I walk down the aisles of the quilt shows and people will say, "There's Donna Wilder," So it's been a great 3 series that we've done together. So I'm kind of sad that we're leaving, but I know that Cindy will do a wonderful job replacing me.
She has been in our industry for a long time, and she's not actually retiring from the industry, but she has a wonderful line of FreeSpirit Fabrics, and she's going to be working with those and continuing on. She never really will retire. I know she never will. And you remember some of the fun things that we've done on the set? Do you remember the day that we were out on the deck in the back and we were taping and a big cloud came over, and our ending line that day was that they should watch Quilt Central next time when we were quilting up a storm. And thunder just came in the rain and everything, and the cameramen were on the run to get the cameras in.
The other thing that I remember is when we would have to do the intros and the exits, and we'd be out there and we would get absolutely hysterical because we'd have these simple one-liners that were the hardest, because we'd start and something would happen and we'd do a blooper, and there we were standing there and having to do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times just to get that one-liner out.
Right, out on the hot pavement, our feet were hot.
And I think the thing that is so incredible, if all of you could see exactly how it is when we tape, and you see these sets in the beautiful place that we're in, which is the retreat that Janie has, and if you saw how all of this production goes on, you'd be amazed. We're in, where we change and tape things together, and it's really a major production, but it all looks so great when you put it together, and these awards are really attest to that.
Despite all the things we've gone through, we have won 5 awards in the last 2 years.
Yeah. And this one was the one that we won for the first series, and that was the Videographer's Award. And that's selected by peers out there in the television and movie industry. And so I think it's a really great credit to the whole production of the show, and to you, Janie, and to me for being there and doing the show. So,
of the 5 awards that they had awarded for the videography and for information and education. We've had some really great honors.
And this is an award of excellence that we received from Aegis, and that was for the second series. So,
Yes.
you know, it's really nice to know that not only do you get a lot of information, but professionals in the industry also feel the show is of top quality.
Yes.
And Donna, on behalf of Quilt Central and the entire crew, we would like to present you the most prestigious award we have won, the Telly.
Oh my goodness, oh gosh, wow. You're gonna make me cry. Wow. Thank you.
It's not too many programs that win that, and we came out on top with that.
Oh, well, I am honored to take this. It's just, and it's not really mine, it's the whole show, and I thank you very much. And Janie, I'm gonna miss not having you there. It's been delightful.
We'll sure miss Donna, but I know you will enjoy our new co-host. Join me in welcoming Cindy Walter. I'm so happy to have you here with me.
Well, thank you, Janie, and I've always loved being on the show, so I'm really excited to help you bring quilting techniques to our viewers.
I know you'll bring a lot to the show. Cindy is a creative quilter. You may recognize her as the creator of the Snippet Sensations techniques, but she has also taught all types of traditional quilting, authored 8 books, and judged large quilt shows.
Well, thank you, Janie, and with that great introduction, I better get to work. Mary Covey's waiting for me inside, so I'll see you there.
Mary Covey has created a wonderful piece for our living room. Come take a look.
Our guest is a quilting teacher and author. Join me in welcoming Mary Covey, who's going to show us some very, very great ways to use those heirloom linens. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so gosh, this is just amazing. Show me some of the linens you've collected.
Well, over the years, my mother and grandmother have passed down to me different embroidered items like handkerchiefs. Some of them have crochet on them. Some have hand-tatted lace. Pillowcases, dresser scarves, and one of the things that I know my mother and my grandmother would not appreciate is if I stored those things in a drawer and never let anyone see them, see how much work had gone into them.
That's right, and they're truly treasures.
Yes.
I mean, we have to show them off.
Well, and I wanted to incorporate them into quilts because I'm a quilter, and I thought what better way than to mix the old with the new and make them a part of my daily life where I can display them.
That's a great idea. I have quite a few too, so after spending the day with you, I'm going to take mine out of the drawers. So show me, can we use all of them, or?
Well, you can use most of the things that you've inherited or that you find at a flea market, but there are some things that you don't want to cut into.
Okay.
This is a perfect example of a piece that's in excellent condition. It has an overall design that would ruin the design if you cut into it. Another example...
Well, wait, let me ask you, for this one then, maybe we could use it as a center medallion in a quilt
You
or
might
something.
want to do that, a small wall hanging, or
Okay.
you might want to use it as a pillow, the cover for a pillow.
Great idea, great idea. Okay, good.
This is an example of the end of a pillowcase. The fabric is in excellent condition, and also the embroidery is an overall large design. So unless there was a damaged spot on this, you would want to keep this intact and use it for the same thing, a medallion or for a pillow, something like that.
It's absolutely beautiful too. It's beautiful. Okay.
Now, this little piece is so cute, but the fabric is very thin and flimsy.
Frail, huh?
Yes. So if you use this in a quilt project, what you might want to do is use a very good stabilizer underneath this to
Okay.
keep your block intact.
Okay.
This is an example of a piece that's in pretty poor condition, the piece itself. It has a hole in it, a couple of stains on it, but the lace on the outside edge is in excellent condition. So before I use this piece, what I might do is remove the lace, and you can see that it was hand sewn onto there.
So when you remove the lace, do you cut the thread or do you actually cut in the fabric?
I actually take the seam ripper and cut that thread because
Okay.
it will come off really easily.
Okay.
Then after the lace is removed and there's no chance that I would cut into it, then I could actually cut into the designs and avoid these stains in the hole.
Okay.
Okay. This is an example of a piece where I've already cut the design out. You can see that I've cut that away to use in a block. But it has some wonderful lace on it that we could
Beautiful.
still use. And it also has this large blank area of fabric in the center, so that if I needed 4 blocks and I only had 3, I could trace my design onto this fabric so that all the fabric in the project would still be vintage.
Yeah, so you're matching the fabric to
Yes.
any other block you need. Perfect
Yes.
idea.
So you
Great.
would want to save that.
Boy, it's really pretty too, this lace. Okay, so on our quilt today, it's a memory quilt.
Yes.
And you've put a lot of beautiful blocks in there. And your mom made all those?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's so special. Show me how you started those blocks.
Well, the idea behind memory quilts is that you incorporate them into a traditional block. You could use any block that has a negative space, like an Ohio star has a square.
Or
in
attic
the-
windows, something with a
Yes.
picture area. Okay.
Yes. And so for the purpose of this project, we've made our memory block 6 1/4 inches square.
Okay.
And all of these instructions will be given online, so if we go through them
Oh,
pretty
on the
fast.
Quilt Central, on
yes.
the Quilt Central website. Great.
Yes. So don't worry that you have to get a pencil and paper and write this down. You can
Yeah, they can find
get
it on the
from them.
website. Good.
Yes. 6 1/4 inches for the center memory block.
Okay.
4 squares that are 4 5/8 inch square.
Okay.
2 squares that are 5 inches square,
Oh.
and you'll cut them once on the diagonal to create.
The 5-inch ones we cut on
Yes.
the diagonal once to create 4 triangles.
Yes.
Okay.
From the green fabric, you're going to cut 6 squares that are 2 5/8 inches.
Okay.
2 of them you'll cut once on the diagonal to create 4 triangles. The remaining 4, you're going to take your pencil and draw a diagonal line on each one of them on the wrong side of the fabric.
Okay, and I noticed,
Now-
and sometimes you don't draw a line, sometimes you just
I
iron
like
it.
to press the line. I think
Yeah.
it's more accurate.
Okay.
Okay. From the purple fabric, you need 4 squares that are 5 inches square. You'll cut them once on the diagonal to create 8 triangles, and those are your start points.
Okay.
Then again, in the instructions at the Quilt Central website, it'll have this template for you.
Okay.
And you'll cut this template from template plastic, actually lay it on the triangle.
From all of the triangles?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll cut off the corner so that your piece looks
Just
like
one
this.
corner, okay?
Yes.
Great.
Now you're ready to construct.
Okay.
And that's the fun part. What you want to do with the squares that you either drew the line or pressed the line is line them up on the corner of your memory square and actually sew on that drawn line.
Right, because we're going to make a half square triangle.
Yes. And you'll want to
Right.
repeat that for all 4 corners. Then once you've done that, you'll press them back, and after I press, I like to go back and trim that 1/4 inch.
I noticed you didn't trim this, and that's just a little more stabilizer.
I think it gives more
Yeah,
stability to the
okay.
block.
And then we have our side blocks.
These are for our star points, and you'll use the background triangle, a purple star point,
Okay.
sew the 1/4 inch seam, press it open,
Great.
and you'll create one side. Then you'll repeat the same process with using the green triangles, press
And
it
those
open,
2 blocks go together?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at our finished block.
and this is our block that we're going to sew into rows.
And this is where you use the lace also.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful idea. And you brought some other quilts with you. The Scotty dog in the
I
center. That
did.
one is wonderful.
Well, thank you. And that's a way that you can use something other than embroidery. The Scotty dog was a rug hooking pattern of my mother's, and what I did was trace that and embroider it myself so that it was part of her past and something that I did with my own hands.
I have quite a few antique linens from my family, and I am going to definitely show them off. I mean, it's just such a wonderful way. Every one of your projects are beautiful and
Thank
very,
you.
very touching. What is your favorite type of linen to collect from your family?
Well, it's hard to say, but I love the embroidery pieces. I just think that hours of work went into them, just like our quilting.
Yes, and you know, I want to thank you because I know I'm very excited that the big quilt behind us you've given to the Quilt Central studio for our wall. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm pleased to have with me today Kim Diamond from Sweet Dreams Quilting Studio, and she's an expert with the computer-assisted quilting machines and the software that goes along with them. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have struggled with getting the programs into the computers, and I just think your work is absolutely outstanding, and I'm so glad to have your gallery here. And I see that you have a stack and whack quilt
I do.
that you've done a little bit with.
I do. That's my mother's quilt, and it was really fun designing the quilting pattern that goes with it. The the flowers that go around
So
that
you
go into the star points.
Customize right
Customized,
into there.
right.
You also have a cake stand quilt?
I do, and if you look closely, you can probably see that I quilted flowers into the cake stand, the basket. That's a very old-fashioned pattern, and I put a handle on it and flowers
beautiful.
into the baskets.
And a fan quilt.
I did, and this was a really interesting one. I put the whole quilt, redrew the whole quilt on the computer, and then designed quilting lines that fit just in the certain areas, like the ribbons in the center of the quilt.
And then you have an unusual pine burr.
I do, and that was really fun. That one's made out of Christmas fabrics, and we designed one design that goes into the block itself, and then that kind of scalloped edge one that works really nice in between each one.
Those are all dilemmas. They are all difficult because they're not a plain square block left over that you can just work with a 10 by 10. They have little areas that you have to. Can you give us some hints on how to go about that?
You know, sometimes the hardest part is just finding the block. You know, what is really a block? And most quilts are made square by square, and if you really look at them all and look, you can find where the block is, and once you can draft that block and then just figure out how they turn and put them together, then you can see, you know, areas that you can do quilting in that aren't just confined to the blocks.
And you like the auto sketch program that is in most of the software for this?
Right, it's a two-dimensional CAD program, and mostly you just draw with lines and arcs, and it's got lots of things that allow you to draw, and then we use the computer-assisted long arm reads those files then and lets it do the sewing.
Well, you have, I understand, some computer background too, so.
Right, in a former life, I was a computer programmer.
So I need to take one of your classes because I'm not very computer literate, but your work is outstanding and I really admire it. I have a dilemma here myself,
All right.
and that's one of the reasons I've asked you to come and help me, but it was hard for me to see the block.
It is. This is another quilt that's very difficult, but when you really get down and look at it, there is a square block here.
And then one of the girls that is with Quilt Central has a little wiggle that she does, her own little freehand, and you've kind of designed a block to match what Tina does.
Right. She showed me her wiggle, and then I went off that and spent a half an hour or so designing a block pattern that we could sew just in the block.
Well, why don't you show us a little bit of what you've done?
All right. You notice I'm going to set up on the center of the quilt. Go ahead and pull up my bobbin stitch. And then the machine is automatically going to move to an offset because not all quilting patterns start from the center.
Right.
And so it automatically calculates, or I tell it how far to go, and then it's going to go ahead and start sewing. And I'm just going to clip my threads. And now, even though I did all the design, it's doing all the sewing. It allows me to set the stitch length. I can get small stitches, I can do longer stitches.
Or speed along.
Or speed along.
Wonderful. It's absolutely gorgeous and perfectly centered. I just love that. It's incredible. I hope to take one of your classes. Thank you, Kim, so much for helping me with this dilemma and showing us some of your expertise.
Thank you.
Now we go from computer quilting to hand quilting with Cindy.
Most of us quilters are used to using a hoop, but not so familiar with a floor frame. So let me show you how to use one. This particular one has 3 rails, although some of the older models might have 2, but you use them in the same way. I'm going to add, I have this one set in the frame perfectly, but I'm going to back it off to show you how I put it in the frame. I pin the top to the back bar with pins all along the muslin, and then I'm going to pin the fabric, the backing and the batting to the second middle bar, and then I'm going to pin all 3 layers to the front bar, and pinning it right into the muslin with long quilting pins. Then to set the tension, it's kind of odd because you'd think you roll the bottom bar, but actually we're going to roll the center bar first and set the tension on the backing and the batting. Remember, the batting was on top, and then we're going to finally set the tension on the top by rolling the top bar into place, or the back bar. And let me get this all in place. And I can set it tautly with these gears here and a ratchet and put that in place, and I'm nice and taut. Maybe one more click. There, we've got it. And to make the quilt stay completely taut, I'm going to pin on the muslin attachment area here to the top of the quilt. Of course, the muslin lengths are long, so you could even put a small wall quilt right in a frame, a big floor frame. You can quilt almost any size quilt in the floor frame. I hope, one more tip too I want to say is set it at the right height and at the right angle so that when you do quilt, you can sit up straight, you can lean in and sit up straight and don't put stress on your back. So anyway, I can't wait to start quilting the pine tree quilt.
Today we have with us Sally Terry, and she has brought with her the language of quilting. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Janie. Thank you for inviting me.
This is your language right here, isn't it?
Right. I found that using templates and patterns and transferring thread work to a quilt, you can divide up the actual block into 5 basic shapes. So we have arc, S-curve, straight line, loop, and hook.
That's interesting that all those would make up a block pattern.
And so I brought a sample with me today.
You just measure up your block and
Measured my block pattern first.
cut a muslin for a master.
Right. Typically, I would use yellow quilting paper and probably needle punch the design using the number of layers that I actually have for the blocks.
So needle punch is really, you just take your master,
Correct?
pin it on top of a stack of other golden papers, and
Right.
sew through it with no thread then.
Correct.
And then you
Correct.
have all your patterns. You don't have to draft all
Right.
that.
And you've only drawn it once.
That's
So
neat.
it works really well. So then the next thing I would do is try to break up a complicated design into a very simple design. So I can take this hook, for example, and look at this pattern and actually focus here and draw my needle there. So I'd like to show you on the sewing machine
Okay.
how it actually works.
Be good.
Put on my magic gloves. I'm going to focus right here, and as I move the fabric underneath the needle, I can make an arc here.
And add in a little
Right,
freehand.
S-curve, I can make a curl or a loop. I can put another arc back in here. I can draw the machine right up here.
So this
Focus
is
where I'm going, another arc, arc, a vein, arc. What I like to do is use asymmetrical patterns so that I don't have to worry about being perfectly dead on the pattern.
So basically you're training yourself to do a whole arc or 2 arcs together, which would make a leaf. So if you have the feel and the flow of it, you should be able to freehand real well if you just learn those few shapes.
Exactly. That's all there is to it.
And I see you embellish some of your patterns.
Yes, I really like to work with surface design, and so I've used jewels, which are really fun to do.
And you also incorporate, you pick just one of these shapes, like the arc,
Like the arc.
and always use that one to embellish
Right,
with.
instead of scattering the jewels completely over and not really having a design or a pattern to work with, I've just chosen an arc.
You just want to show us how you
Sure,
apply
we
one
just
of
pick
those?
this up so that you have the right tip.
Right,
And then it's holding it.
okay.
And then as this wand heats up,
And you just stick it right on
Oh.
there? Or sometimes you just heat it?
well, it needs to be on there about 15 seconds. The
Leave it on.
adhesive will bubble,
There
and
you
then
go.
it becomes permanently attached to the fabric.
Well, thank you, Sally, for
You're
showing
welcome.
this.
Thank you.
I sure hope you enjoyed today's show. Wasn't Sally's technique interesting?
She's made it so simple to design a quilting pattern.
Yeah.
Cindy, thank you so much for joining the Quilt Central team.
Well, it's my pleasure. And please join us next week when we blend the old with the new. We'll show how women of the 1800s wrote on their quilts and duplicate the technique.
We'll learn how to machine quilt an antique top
How to turn your old worn silk clothing into treasures.
and revive a 1930s technique. So be sure to join us on the next Quilt Central.
Quilt around the clock. Visit the Quilt Central website at www.quiltcentraltv.com for more information on this program.
Because we were together many years ago when we started our So Creative series, and I got to be a part of Janie's new one called Quilt Central, I wanted to present this little gift to you, just for the memories, the inspiration, and all the fun.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness, what is in
Well, these are the books that you admired yesterday at the museum.
Oh, look at that. That's great.
Those are, you didn't see the second one, but the first one is the
Oh,
one you wanted.
Colors
and
of
then
Nature.
These are
Great inspirations.
Yeah.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
Janie, thank you so much. Oops.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Janie America. Janie, because you simply love to sew. American Quilters Society, dedicated to promoting today's quilter. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, and books. Olfa, the original rotary cutting system. A1 Quilting Machines, precision quilting machines. A1. American Professional Quilting Systems, APQS, offers a full line of hand-guided quilting machines. June Taylor Company. Krause Publications. Milliken & Company. The Warm Company. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Now you can celebrate quilting in your everyday living. To purchase videotapes of this or any episode of Quilt Central, you may call toll-free 1-866-PADUCA or 1-866-723-82.